Hi, Mia.
Good evening, Primo. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Milford. Look at all these people who came for the Office of Cannabis Management. I love it. How you doing, Milford?
Hanging in there, hanging in there. They keep throwing it, I keep blocking them.
All right, keep blocking those punches, man. I believe in you. Here is Pascal, which is great. Victor is here. Wonderful. Adam, welcome. Hey, Victor, what's going on? Pascal, thank you for joining us. Pleasure to have you here. Our meeting is officially being recorded. We're still waiting on a few members of our committee. It's 7:01, so understandable. But we're also clearly joined by a number of members of the community, which is great. I think let's give it 2 minutes. We'll give it till 7:03, and then we'll do a round of introductions, and then we'll dig in. But for everybody who's new to this space, hello, my name is Primo Lasana. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I'm joined by the incomparable Mia Hilton, who is on the staff at the community board office. And then we have Victor, who's also a member of our committee, a community member of our committee, and Pascal Bernard, who kindly joins us from the Office of Cannabis Management. Here comes Jakob Berman, who's failed to connect to audio, but is also a member of the, hello, Jakob.
Hello, how are you? Good evening.
Happy Purim. How was your holiday?
Thank you. We were here. I'm here actually. I'm putting Saradina to bed over here. But Purim was great. We danced and sang all night.
I love to hear it. Did
You should have come. I didn't think of it. I should have invited you.
Next time, next year in Jerusalem, Yaakov.
Why next year in Jerusalem? Next year we'll celebrate at Crown Heights, not Jerusalem.
Next year in Crown Heights, then.
Where'd you do Purim?
I didn't do Purim this year. I didn't get any invites. So
We had like 30 people. Oi.
Okay, next time. I next time I'll reach out to you, Ronald.
Yes,
welcome.
for sure. We have a big party every year. We'd love to have you.
I would love that. I would
Right,
truly would.
Yeah, so do you agree?
I've been missing the Hamantashen. It's been a while, so
I would invite you Pesach. I'm not here Pesach, but
me
Shavuot maybe.
Me either, actually. But Purim sounds like the perfect opportunity for us to spend some time together. So I'm going to put it on the calendar for next year. We have 4 members of the committee at this point, and a number of members of the community. I think at this point, it might be good to just do a quick round of introductions, since we got 12, 14, 6, 12-ish people here. So why don't we'll make it quick. We'll do quick, easy introductions, which will just be your name, what your involvement with the community board is. If you're just a community member, just say that, and then what brings you to the meeting tonight, and then we'll dive into the content, because I know that we have a lot to get through tonight, which is great. So I'll kick things off. Hello, everyone. My name is Primo Lasana. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee for Community Board 9. And what brings me here today is excitement around hearing from the Office of Cannabis Management, as well as making sure that we are doing our duty to hear from an applicant for a liquor license. We are at a moment that is very critical, where licensing in Brooklyn for cannabis is becoming a thing, and we need to get it right in our first year of welcoming these new businesses to the community. They are coming, and so we want to have as much community involvement in that process as is possible. And so I've said way more than I should in an introduction, and I'm going to pass it along to Milford Pruitt to just say a few words about what brings you here tonight, Milford.
Well, I was interested in the topic, but I'm more formally here as a representative of the Health and Social Services Committee of CB9. Where our efforts overlap in this case, I think, as so many do. And I just wanted to apprise myself of it and plus get some handouts.
Okay, we'll get you some handouts, Milford. Fantastic. Welcome to the space. I'm going to pass it along next to Adam. He's next on my screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Adam Stoneski. I'm here from the Office of Cannabis Management with Pascal, Program Specialist in the Intergovernmental Outreach. Happy to be here. We're going to give some good presentational material, and Milford will give you some of those handouts too, for sure.
All right.
Awesome. Make Milford's day, why don't you? I'll pass it along to Victor up next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So Victor Sanchez Lloveras, I'm a community board member, and I'm excited for the presentation from the Cannabis Management Office.
Fantastic. I'll pass it along next to Pascal.
Good evening, Pascal Bernard, Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs at the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. I'll pass it along next to Yakov. Yakov may be putting, may or may not. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. So Rabbi Yaakov Bierman, I am a longtime community board member since 2015, former chair of public safety, political liaison for Chabad, but I also have a drug prevention program, which is under OASIS and Department of Health. So that's OASIS, which is state and city Department of Health. So I am interested in hearing as well because I'm involved in the some of the conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yakov. I'll pass it along to Ronald.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Banks, and I'm a resident committee member. And I'm here to be informed and stay involved and contribute in any manner that I can to the quality of life to my community.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ronald. Always good to have you here. I'll pass it next to Patrick, who I believe is here for a liquor license. I believe. I could be wrong.
Okay. Yes, good evening. My name is Patrick Agard, and I am here representing IGR Holdings this evening.
All right, great. And that is for Patrick Steakhouse, correct?
That's correct.
Self-appointed, self-titled name. It's a good one. Look forward to hearing more about your business soon. And then I would pass it next to Jerry Keys.
Jerry. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerry. I am a resident of the district, community member. I also work for Brooklyn Community Pride Center, which is located in the Armory, Bedford Union, now Major Owens Community Center. And I'm just here getting to know a little bit more about how the community board works and interested in hearing from the Office of Cannabis Management.
Fantastic. Welcome, Jerry. I'll pass it to Teresa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Westerdahl. I'm a member of Community Board 9 and the EP committee. Trying to set up my camera. Sorry for the problems. I'm just interested in the cannabis presentation and also talking about a couple of other safety needs when I get a chance later.
That's good, Teresa. Welcome. Always good to have you here. I'll pass it next to Rod Herbert.
Hi, Rod Herbert here, longtime member of the community. I'm here in the meeting tonight to listen to the presentation.
Great. Welcome, Rod. Good to see you again. I think you were here last week. Or last month, not week, it all blends together. And then I'll pass it next to Ennis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, yeah, you are. Thank you so much. My name is Ennis. I'm a member of the community, and I'm here on behalf of the newly formed Flatbush Lincoln Tenants Association to restate some concerns that we're having in terms of safety. But also, I'm just really excited to be here.
Welcome, Ennis. We're excited to hear from you as well. Great. So that makes the rounds in terms of our introductions. It's a great crowd. Mia, if you wouldn't mind doing a little bit of background and just checking if with the four of us we have a quorum, that would be helpful. You can, get back to me later, but shoot me a text or whatever. For now, we're going to proceed as planned. And so I'm just going to walk you through the agenda. This is our welcome and our overview of the agenda, which is the first item. So next, we have 4 items on the agenda. A welcome. Second, we are going to hear from Patrick and hear about Patrick's Steakhouse and their reapplication for a liquor license. And then next, as the third item, we'll move into presentation from the Office of Cannabis Management. There should probably be a sub-bullet there also that just says Q&A. So we know there's a lot of folks here who have questions after the presentation. Then Ennis, I think, bullet 4 speaks to you. We have community safety concerns, and then we'll adjourn. I think that we are likely going to have to add just a little piece to the agenda, which is going to be around what our next steps are going to be with regard to the cannabis applicants, because we actually have our first ever application for cannabis in the community, and we are not quite at a place yet where we are able to accept that. Today's presentation will, I think, be very helpful in terms of getting to a place where we're ready to accept that. But I want to talk about some next steps in terms of getting us to that place within the next 2 months.
Are they required to come to us for point of clarification?
That we will certainly get there in the application, but in the presentation, but there is a flyer that was sent around along with the agenda for this that outlines the process that applicants have to take, and they are required to come through the community board. If I'm not correct, that is in one of the flyers that I see Adam's nodding his head in affirmation. So yes, they do have to apply through community boards. If Teresa, I see that you have a hand raised. If you wouldn't mind just holding that question until after we have the presentation from the Office of Cannabis Management, unless it is regarding something that is not referring to the marijuana application.
Well, I didn't see that paperwork. Was it sent to everybody or just the?
It was sent to the committee members. I'll forward it to you right now.
All right, I just would like to see it while he's presenting. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, let's turn it over to bullet number 2, which is to get into the application. Mia, actually, would you mind forwarding that to Teresa, just since I'm doing stuff?
Yeah, I got you. No problem.
Thank you. Super helpful. So we'll get into our SLA applicant for today for IGR Holdings. Folks on the committee should have this in their inboxes. For folks who are not on the committee, we're going to walk you through the application really quickly. That's my job. And then we'll turn it over to Mr. Agard to walk us through his business and give us a little bit more context. But I'm just going to walk through some of the most pertinent pieces of the application for everybody who's on the call today. And so I would name, first of all, that this is a renewal application. The business is already up and running, serving alcohol, has been in operation for 2 years at this point. It is located on Rogers Avenue at 227 Rogers Avenue, which I believe is between Union and President. And the business is applying for a full application. So that is it is liquor, beer, and wine. The hours of operation for this business are reasonable, in my opinion. Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 4 to 12. And then on Sunday from 11 to 10 p.m. So nothing that is extending beyond 12 a.m. And then in terms of the space that they have available, they do, I believe, have a backyard. And in terms of music played, they are not doing live music. They're only doing music from recorded machines, technology, CDs, iPods, etc. They are very cautious around the noise level. And then Mia, if you wouldn't mind confirming for us just that there have not been any police reports at this location. See a nod of the head. She may be double checking.
Yes, we have not received any negative information from FDNY or NYPD.
Fantastic. So I believe that rounds out, it's a proper steakhouse. They have attached their menu to the application as well. Seafood, well, Patrick, this is a reasonable time for you to step in and tell us about your business. But that's an overview of the application.
All right, good evening again. My name is Patrick Agard. Just by coincidence, I am not the owner. I'm just a representative for them that prepared the applications for them.
Okay.
And, the owner is, her name is Miss Itzel Rivas. And she's also an employee of the DOE. She works in the Bronx. And they have good management there and good people there. And they've been able to run this place. And I think you did an excellent job in describing and saying all that needs to be said about it. left me nothing to say. So outside of the fact that, they're just looking to renew and to continue to do business at Rogers Avenue where they are.
Sounds good. Patrick, it would be my strong recommendation that Itzel make it to the next round of this.
Yes.
The community always likes to speak with the owner and is very likely to reject an application if they can't speak to the owner.
I understand. Okay.
Yep. So hopefully it'll make it through this committee without the owner being present. If you can have her hop on the call at some point later tonight, that would be great. If not, we'll go through the process, and the process, but it is for us to essentially vote on this application for it to go further to the larger community board at the general meeting, in which case we'll basically do another round of this for the general public at the meeting, and the entire community board would vote on it then. So if she's able to join us even by phone, that would be great. If not, understood, and we'll follow the process.
Okay. Thank you. I'll do my best to see if we can get her on tonight as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Patrick? Or yep, I see a thumbs up from Milford, and I see a hand from Kyrie. Kyrie, go for it.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and good evening to you, Patrick.
Good evening.
Yes, so I just have a couple of questions. When reviewing the forms, I noticed that our first form that was sent out to you all was completed on February 15th. And during that time, for the method of operations, for the music, it was left blank. That the first initial application had a couple of areas where it wasn't completed. And then on the question 15, it asked if you all have a license for any outdoor spacing. The response was no. So then I looked at the most recent updated form, which is our follow-up Community Board 9 SLA liquor license application questionnaire. And there, I don't know if it's because this one was filled out February 28th. So I just wanted a little clarity, because here it says that you all are going to have entertainment, and also Primo just said that you're going to do jukeboxes, but on this form, it also says live music in jukeboxes. So that's one question. So what type of music will be played there? Two, there's also a sign I haven't seen on either of the applications. I know that your space is 2,000 square feet and it can hold the capacity of up to 74 people. However, it doesn't list if there are any tables and chairs at your establishment. So that was left blank on both applications. So we just want to know how many tables and chairs. And lastly, on the questionnaire, it says that you all intend, when you ask for the hours of operation, you ask for hours for the outdoor spacing. But again, on the first submission of your application, it says that you're not licensed for any outdoor areas. So I just wanted a little clarity on that. Like if there were some updates, you have license now to actually operate outside. And if not, then I would say for the Public Safety Committee that his application, you all are requesting to actually entertain outside. So thank you.
Okay. The outside area, they have always been licensed by the Liquor Authority to, that was originally in their application, to use the backyard. So that's always, once the license, they are licensed to serve and use the backyard.
Okay, so that's okay. So now we understand that, because on the form it says no, the one that was filled out here. So that's okay. All right. So that's the answer for that question. And how many tables and chairs are there at the establishment?
Okay, originally I have to get the later count for you, and if you permit me, if I can get Itzel on the phone a little bit later, we can get that information to you, or we can get that information to your office first thing in the morning. But what they originally started out with, they cut down the number of chairs and tables that they originally opened up with. So I would get that information for you, try to get it for you before this meeting is over this evening.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, while you're doing that, the other question I have on my list is, how many employees are going to be used at this establishment? That also was left out of both applications. Thank you.
At last count, it's because of the hours, it's usually between 6 to 8. But again, I would confirm that, and I would have if Ms. Itzel can be on the line, she would be able to answer those questions directly as well.
Sounds good. Kyrie, thank you for the great questions and for
Thank you
reviewing
so
the
much.
application so closely. I think we do have an answer on the outside space, which is that, yes, the application already is granted for the outside space. And Kyrie, I'm looking at an application from February 17th where they do say for that they intend to use the outside space and they name it as the yard. It sounds like we have a few different iterations of this application.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I only have the 15th version and then
Got
we
it.
have the 28th.
Yeah.
The question.
So
Yeah.
I think it would be, I'll circle up with Mia as well afterwards, but let's get an answer. It would be great to get an answer to Kyrie's other two questions just around tables and staff as well. Okay, so hopefully Itzel is able to join us tonight. If
Okay,
not,
yeah.
we'll do some work on the back end and see if we can get things sorted out before the general board meeting, but it would actually have to be before the executive committee meeting. So just so you know, on the process side, if we don't get an affirmative vote from this committee tonight, then it would have to go to the executive committee next, which is a meeting that I believe happens in a few weeks. And hopefully the executive committee would be able to approve it to go to the general board meeting. Great. All right, any other questions for Patrick? Milford?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everybody. I'd like to know the restaurant's ADA compliance posture. What are the doors like? What is the acceptability for wheelchair use? What are the restrooms like? As it relates to ADA compliance.
They're fully compliant with the for wheelchair and the front entrance, and they have a
grab bars.
No, the on the ground that you put the elevation to wheelchairs can get into it. As a matter of fact, they had a problem with that, where someone had actually stolen that from them some months ago. And come to find out, it was kind of a scam that was going around where people would come around and take that object away from the front door, and then all of a sudden now they make a phone call, and next thing you know, you're getting a violation for that. So, but anyway, they are fully compliant for ADA and both the bathrooms and the general entrances as well.
Whoa, that's interesting. But that theft, you think it's still going on?
No, it hasn't happened just that one time. But this is something that had been going on around with different establishments around the city where people were doing these things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
And learn something new every day, Milford. That's a good one. Shame. That's a real, what a scam. Okay. So with that, I'll see just Kyrie, go for it.
Oh, yes, just lastly, and I should know this, and I'm almost positive there is, but about a school, is the school within 200 feet of proximity of your restaurant? I believe so, Mega Evers.
No, 200 feet is not really a large.
Yeah, okay.
But there's no school or church within the 200-foot rule of their establishment.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because that also was left blank when you're on these applications.
The one that you're looking at. They have it filled out on the one that I have. And they say, well, yeah, they have it, but I'm looking at a map, and because it's over on Rogers, you know,
Rogers is not
is between Bedford and Franklin.
Right. I was just making sure because I know that is a rule, and before we vote and say yes and suggest, we want to make sure that everyone's in compliance with the rules. So thank you. That was my question. Thank you so much.
All right.
It's a good check. Thank you, Kyrie. Last call for questions. All right, I gave it 7 seconds. Seeing no questions at this time, I'd like to move along to our presentation from our friends at the Office of Cannabis Management. And Mia, if we could just make sure that they have screen sharing capabilities, if they would like to do that.
Sure. Will you both be presenting? Pascal?
Just Adam.
Got it.
And just to kind of, as we're getting that up and running, just to kind of ground us all, the presentation is about, the slides will take about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll do about a half hour of Q&A. And then, you know, we will let you continue on with your meeting without us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Perfect. Let's give this a second. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Stoneski again with the Office of Cannabis Management. This presentation is just give us a brief overview, starting off with what's legal now, the law that authorizes marijuana now to be legal, going over revenue, as well as our conditional licensing program and our bigger not conditional, but regular licensing that will soon be come out. Pascal will go into some of our enforcement as well as the role of the community board as well. So jumping right into it, what is legal? So with the MRTA, basically it passed so that adults over 21 can buy and possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis flower and up to 24 grams of concentrated cannabis. That's oils, tinctures, edibles, vapes, and other products. Cannabis can be used in a private home or a state licensed on-site consumption site. As of today, there is no on-site licenses. Regulations around this license haven't even been established yet. So really the only places right now are private homes, or vaping and smoking cannabis is allowed in spots that smoking tobacco. But if tobacco is not allowed, smoking and vaping is also not allowed. So you heard me reference before the MRTA, also known MRTA. It stands for the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. The MRTA was signed as of March 31st, 2021. And the MRTA actually created our Office of Cannabis Management, but also a bigger entity, which is our Cannabis Control Board. That is a 5-member board that oversees the Office of Cannabis Management. They are the approver of licenses, approver of regulations, so the real governing body of the OCM. Additionally, the MRTA created a 20-member cannabis advisory board. I'll go into a little more detail about what the advisory board will be doing in the future here. Also, MRTA legalized adult use cannabis, that's recreational marijuana, but it also expanded on the state's already existing medical cannabis programs and cannabinoid hemp programs. So these were all existing prior to that March 31st, 21. It's now just expanding on these programs, making them more elaborate, adding new things to them, really making sure they're a healthy market. And finally, it's really shifting that cannabis framework to a public health framework, whereas it was very in the dark, a lot of people didn't talk about it. We're really trying to, if you guys can see to the right here, really trying to shift over to that public health. It's also economic development, social justice, and public safety are real huge aspects. So again, talking about what the MRTA does here. So equity in the market, record expungement, and community reinvestment. So equity in the market is looking like 50% of all adult use licenses are being awarded to social and economic equity applicants. Additionally, OCM is developing a social and economic equity plan and programs to help these licensees become successful. For record expungement, it automatically cleared about 400,000 records, and that was automatically expunged through the MRTA passing. And now community reinvestment, that looks like invests 40% of that adult use cannabis tax revenue towards rebuilding those communities that were disproportionately impacted during the cannabis prohibition. Let me see if I can move this out of the way. Perfect. So now the tax revenue that we're talking about. Currently in New York State, we have a THC per milligram tax rather than a weight-based. So that's 3 cents per milligram for THC edibles, 5 cents per milligram for THC cannabis flower, and 8 cents per milligram for THC concentrates. What this does is also kind of helps with this consumer pushing lower potency products to people. We really want people who are, maybe new to cannabis or experienced to really start slow. And low potency is what we're looking for with a higher tax on high potency items. Additionally to the tax I just mentioned, there's a 9% state excise tax on the sale of cannabis products by the retailer to the cannabis consumer. And then finally, there's a 4% local excise tax at the retail price, and it's broken down by 25% to the county, and then the rest going to the city, town, or village. So with that tax revenue I just broke down to you, we're going to talk about how that money is going to be distributed. It's community grant reinvestment at 40%, education at 40%, and drug treatment and public education at 20%. So it's a very easy breakdown of the 40-40-20. So for community grant reinvestment, that's grants to nonprofits in those communities that are based in these communities that were disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. And that's where that Cannabis Advisory Board comes in, that 20-member board. They're going to be the ones establishing these communities, making sure that the money is going to the correct programs. And really that's their job as the advisory board, to determine where that money's going to in these communities. The drug treatment and public education, that is at 20% we saw, and that's going to be looking like OCM or maybe possibly other sister agencies, developing and implementing statewide public campaigns to provide substance use treatments to programs for youth, substance abuse, etc. And then 40% education, just going to the education fund. So opportunities in New York State cannabis industry. So before we talked about the MRTA, MRTA, or Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, and under that law, there are 9 license types. The license types in front of you are those 9. So we have retail dispensaries, on-site consumption, cultivation, nursery, processor, distributor, delivery, adult use cooperative, and micro business. So all 9 of these license types need regulations to be written around them. If you're familiar with our currently proposed adult use regulations, I think 7 of the 9 were in those, and it really spelled out clearly, what's required of these applicants, what is not allowed, application requirements, all these different things that really spell the license out in deeper clarification. So in New York State, we have a tiered system, which means that there's many points of access for people who are trying to join the cannabis market. We have the supply tier, retail tier, medical, and laboratories. All of these are separate categories, and no person can have indirect or direct interest across any of these. So if someone owned a cultivator license, they could not have financial or personal interest in someone that is in the retail. This allows for many points of access for processors, distributors, and delivery. Instead, in some states, you might have someone who would take the supply tier from cultivator, have their own dispensary, have their own processor, and really lock down the market, not allowing for this public equity that we are looking for. One of my favorite slides here is the ancillary businesses. These are companies that are already in your community board. They're already running businesses, thriving businesses, and they can actually operate in this cannabis industry just by switching over maybe some of their focus points. All these businesses you see can operate in the market, as of today, and they won't even need to come to us for a license. They could just reach out to, awarded dispensary, processor, for example, and offer these services. So we really think that, community boards could be reaching out to people in their communities, seeing if they have these businesses and really helping them kind of transition into this cannabis market. So we talked about the MRTA license types. Now we're going to talk about what's happening now, conditional adult use licenses. So this is a good time just to separate that these 2 licenses are separate. They're different, but at the same time, kind of breaking down what's going on. So right now, what you see happening is the conditional licenses. These are standalone conditional license systems that are separate from the MRTA. What this allowed us to do is create a really micro cannabis ecosystem to figure out, make sure it gets up running correctly. That looked like starting with adult use conditional cultivators. These are the conditional part of this is that we had hemp cultivators. As long as they were within good standings with ag and markets, we were able to bring them to the conditional program. With the adult use conditional processors, same thing, prior experience, bringing them over into our conditional adult use. And then finally, our probably, like Pascal likes to say, the Beyonce of all licenses, our card conditional adult use retail dispensary licenses. And these are, again, our license types for dispensaries, equity involved, but also not-for-profits. And I could talk about a little more on that. And again, here's the separation between those license types, the MRTA with the 9 license types I'm talking about. And those were included in those adult use regulations. So conditional, small ecosystem happening right now, MRTA, big ecosystem that's coming in the future. And here again, our conditional licenses. We had our adult use conditional cultivators, 279 are currently licensed, and we have more applications under review. For conditional processors, we have 40 with additional applications under review. And our card currently 66 with more under review as well. And we'll be seeing a lot of these coming online. So what our conditional program is, it realized key goals for the cannabis law by prioritizing individuals who had convictions to attain licenses. To the right here, you'll actually see our requirements for the conditional program. It could have been an individual or a family member with a New York State cannabis conviction, and they had to have experience owning and operating a business for 2 fiscal years. The other route a card dispensary could go is being a 501c3 nonprofit. And basically that 501c has to intentionally serve justice-involved individuals. And again, with this is really jumpstarting the program, making sure we're keeping the equity in mind when we jump this. We want to make sure that we're trying to heal past harms that have done with cannabis prohibition. So it's a really awesome program that's starting. I think Pascal is going to take it over here, the enforcement activities.
Thank you, Adam. Next slide. So the MRTA gives OCM enforcement powers over licensed businesses. So I'm going to say that one more time. The MRTA gives OCM enforcement power over licensed businesses. So OCM works with local authorities such as the NYPD, the New York City Sheriff's Department, local law enforcement and other municipalities across the state to address issues related to unlicensed cannabis businesses. Efforts include identifying unlicensed operators, selling illicit cannabis, fines, and store closures. Next slide, please. So illicit sales, and some of you have probably seen the illicit sales in your, I'm sorry, hold on a minute, please. Sorry, my 14-year-old was talking and I didn't want to interfere with this. So OCM's enforcement division has been conducting investigations on illicit cannabis operations since 2022. Our enforcement division, again, routinely works with law enforcement, the NYPD, the Sheriff's Department, local DAs. And we work in a multi-agency task force to shut down these illicit storefronts. And we visit the stores, we issue cease and desist letters to stores. And we assist law enforcement in their investigation in illicit activity. Our enforcement division has collectively like 250 years of experience. These are some of the best professionals from across the state that worked in different agencies in law enforcement and enforcement. Next slide, please. And so here you have some pictures of some of the enforcement activities that our team, again, in a multi-agency task force have participated in to take down. We go into bodegas. I'd like to point your attention to the, I'm sorry, Adam, if we can go back real quick. Yeah, thanks. The Lex Hemp Cannabis Dispensary. You see it's got the leaf and the big sign and things like that. That is not what a licensed dispensary will look like. Next slide, please. Again, here you see all of these items. Everything is just out in the open. There's nothing in locked cases. You see on this, in the empty cases, you see it looks like Charlie Brown or some kind of cartoon character that would be attractive to kids. Again, neither one of these pictures depict what a licensed dispensary will look like. Next slide, please. So, information about our enforcement activities. If you suspect someone is engaging in illicit cannabis activities, selling illicitly, there's a store operating illicitly, please, there are 2 ways that you can go. You can email, or you can email complaints@ocm.ny.gov, or you can go to cannabis.ny.gov/report-incident. And whenever possible, We do ask you to provide the name of the business, the time of the illicit activity, the location of the illicit activity. If possible, without endangering yourself, please. Pictures of the illicit activity indicate if there was a previous police interaction, 911 calls or whatever. Proximity to sensitive use location. So that would include a school. It would have to be, if anything is less than 500 feet from a school. And if anything is less than 200 feet from a house of worship, please include that. And contact information, your contact information. And so the more information you can provide, the better it is for our enforcement team. It reduces the back and forth emails. And that's why we ask for your information if you are reporting in the event that we need more clarification. I will also caution that when our enforcement team engages in these activities, they don't provide us with blow-by-blow information on where they are in the investigation. It is an investigation. And so just like any other investigatory agency, they're not going to provide updates. And I know that that can be frustrating at times, but really it's just to make sure that they don't jeopardize whatever case they may be building. Next slide, please. So the role of community boards. Per cannabis law, community boards and municipalities are allowed to operate to express an opinion on whether they support the Cannabis Control Board's approval of a retail dispensary on-site consumption or registered organization with dispensing license in their area. Additionally, the community board do not have a role in other cannabis license types. So that would include nursery, cultivator, processor, and distributor. So in that sense, the community board has an advisory role where you can advise the Cannabis Control Board if you believe a dispensary, on-site consumption, or a registered organization should operate in your area. A registered organization is just someone that's operating a medical cannabis dispensary. Next slide, please. So where do community boards fit in the process? So people or businesses who apply for cannabis retail dispensary licenses, including registered organizations. Again, those are the people that engage in medical cannabis with a dispensary license or on-site consumption site should submit a notification to their proposed, a notification that their proposed location is within the boundaries of the community board prior to filling out their application. So this is for the MRTA licenses. Remember, Adam talked about two different license types, right? There was the MRTA and then there were the conditional. So for the MRTA licenses, which we've not issued as of yet, they will have to come to the community board prior to getting their license. Applicants must be mindful that community board opinions will become part of the record upon which the Cannabis Control Board shall grant or deny an application for a cannabis license. Applicants should be afforded the opportunity, the appropriate amount of time needed for the community board to opine on the proposed cannabis location. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time on that second bullet, right? That the opinions, the opinions of the community board will be part of the record. So when we first talked about enforcement and we asked people to please submit information to our enforcement team. So there may be people that come that have engaged in illicit activity. And so that's why reporting this to our enforcement team is important, so that when we get the opinions of the community board, if that's happened, you can list like, hey, these people, we've sent complaints to your office about these people all these amount of times. But again, whatever the community board's opinion is, does become part of the record, and it's part of the consideration that the Cannabis Control Board will take. Next slide, please. Retail guidance. And so in October of 2022, we issued retail guidance. It outlined the requirements and expectations of card dispensaries, including inventory tracking, staff and training, location security, facility requirements, purchasing, security, branding, marketing, signage. All card licensees will have to review and sign an attestation agreeing to comply with these requirements. And really, this is all just showing you and really saying that this is a heavily regulated industry. Every single thing, the sign that is on your on inside the store, how the window, the storefront looks, the packaging, the logo on the packaging, the training for staff, where the inventory is kept, how the inventory is kept. All of those things we regulate, and they have to meet the regulations. They have to operate within the confines of the regulations. In addition, they have to swear to agreeing to do this. And so this is, again, a heavily regulated industry. Next slide, please. On November 21st of 2022, the Cannabis Control Board also approved adult use program regulations to establish rules for safer, equitable, consumer-driven market focus on small business. And so this is about our packaging. Again, highly regulated industry. And the packaging, it outlines what the packaging should look like, and you know, making sure that it is sustainable, making sure that, you know, these companies are operating within the guidelines as it's outlined here on this slide. The other thing that we did in December, is we issued proposed regulations. And so the regulations were filed December 14th, and there was a public comment period which ended February 13th of 2023. So the public comment period ended almost a month ago. And so what we've been doing in our office is our teammates have been really looking at all the public comments, and we got a lot of public comments because we're New Yorkers. We have opinions on everything. And so we're going through the public comments and making changes to the proposed regulations. And think about the regulatory process and the public comment as a conversation between government and constituent. And so we put out the proposed regulations. And so that's our part of the conversation. The public comment is, you know, your part of the conversation. And then we go through it, we look at it, and, you know, we'll look at some things and say, you know what, they're actually right. This makes sense right here to change. And so we'll implement a change. And then there are sometimes we'll be like, I think we kind of got it right, so we're going to keep this. And so we will then, as we're going through this process, we make any changes, we then have to put it back out for a 45-day public comment period. And so that's when we give you our rebuttal, and then you take a look at it and you engage in that comment period. And you may say, you know, you made some changes here. I think this is good, but I still think you can do here, here, and there. And we get it back and we make changes. And thereafter, we will release the permanent regulations. And so the comments can be filed by email at regulations@ocm.ny.gov. So right now, there's nothing for you to send to us because, again, the public comment period ended February 13th. But when we issue the proposed regs after this initial review period, then we please encourage you to send us back comments, because we think we know what we're doing, but you may know something that we don't know, and we definitely want to hear from you. Next slide, please. Staffing and training. And so staffing, there has to be an employee that is in charge, that if any reason the Office of Cannabis Management needs to get in touch with them, they have to answer the bat phone no matter what time of day or night it is. And there's also an age requirement. You have to be 21 and over to work in the industry. And the staff goes through extensive training. There is a written manual, there are curriculum requirements, and there's very stringent record keeping. Next slide, please. Advertising and signage. And so external signage is limited to 2 signs, no images, no logos, no symbols. Remember when we showed you the slide that had the pictures of the locations that, you know, our enforcement team went into. And I told you to look at that 3rd picture of the smoke shop that had the bright sign and, you know, the colors and the symbol of the marijuana leaf. Those are not allowed in a licensed dispensary. So there's no kind of symbols, nothing, again, that is cartoonish, that attracts children. You must be 21 and over to even enter a dispensary. And so with delivery locations, again, no signage, and the website must include an age gate and comply with our packaging, labeling, marketing, and advertising guidance. And I will say, so I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. So I understand people who are like, well, how are we sure that the children, people under 21 won't go in? I actually went in and went through the whole, through one of the websites for delivery, and it asked me my age, and it asked it twice before I could even, you know, go to the sales point of, you know, putting in my information. Additionally, when you go into a dispensary, when you first walk in, your ID gets checked. By the time you get to the sales point, your ID is checked, you know, another possibly 2 times. And so you're walking out of dispensaries, having your ID checked 3, maybe 4 times. And the way that the IDs are checked, they're scanned, and it's connected to a larger network where they're able to get license information or ID information, not just from New York State, but from other states. Again, this is a very highly regulated industry, and we're making sure that there are safeguards at all points. Next slide, please. Sales and transaction. There are menus with prices, customer transaction. Again, as I said, there's age verification. In addition, in this picture, you see, remember the other picture we saw where things were just in cabinets open, but here you see there's a case, it is locked. There are locked cabinets behind. And you don't see anything that's appealing to children. This is really what these dispensaries look like on the inside. And the people at the counters who are servicing the, you know, the people into purchase, they are bud tenders. So when you go to a bar, you have a bartender. When you go to a dispensary, you have a bud tender. And so these people have the right to refuse sales, and they have a right to institute a single day limit. And so what that means is if someone comes in and they already look like, you know, they might be compromised, or if they make it through all the security checks, underage or what have you, the bud tender has a right to refuse. So if you're coming in already intoxicated and you're trying to purchase something, the bud tender can say, I'm sorry, you know, I'm not going to allow you to purchase anything from us today. And so they do have that. Next slide, please. And so here we are where we thank you. If there's upcoming events, please feel free to invite us at events@ocm.ny.gov. And to receive regular updates from us, please sign up for updates at www.cannabis.ny.gov. Now, there'll be a lot of people who tell you like, oh, I know what they're doing next. Nobody knows what we're doing next except for us. That's like someone telling you, oh, they know what you're doing next, right? You know what you're doing next. And so the best way to get information is to, again, sign up for our updates at our website. And we are happy to take your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I see a hand up from Rashida. So Rashida, why don't you kick us off? And then Yaakov, I see you next.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So I have couple of questions. Hopefully my internet stays stable. One is, how many enforcement officers do you have right now? Because I know, obviously it's, the enforcement is going to be, I'm sure going to be a substantial part of making sure that the unlicensed establishments either become licensed or not operating in the community. So one, how many enforcement officers do you have? And then secondly, in Brooklyn, are there any licensed establishments yet? I think at one point there was an injunction against that applied to Brooklyn, so they weren't giving out any licenses. If that is still in effect, when does, is there any anticipation of when they're going to start doing licenses in Brooklyn?
So our enforcement team continues to grow, and we have enforcement officers both in our New York City office and in our Albany office. I don't have top of brain how many people we have. But as you know, New York is a vast state, which is why we leverage our relationships with local law enforcement. And we're working in conjunction with the NYPD as well as the New York City Sheriff's Department. And so that partnership has actually been very fruitful. When needed, we bring in DOHMH, we bring in Department for Worker Protection. So that's how we're able to kind of go out and do these multi-agency task force actions against illicit operators. As it relates to Brooklyn, I am sorry, the injunction remains. We don't know when it will be lifted. What I can say is the Attorney General is representing the state in this matter. And as you all know, she is a Brooklyn native and is very tenacious and just brilliant. And so we're really hopeful that something will happen soon, but we don't have any information.
Thank you.
Yaakov, go for it. You may be on mute, Yaakov. We can't hear anything from your audio. Still getting nothing. Personally, I don't think, yeah. It's interesting. We can't hear anything, but it doesn't look like you're on mute. I think your audio may be kicking out through a different device. Maybe a pair of headphones or Bluetooth speaker that you're connected to or something. While Yaakov gets his audio sorted out, why don't we just keep going through the queue, if you will. So I see Kyrie next and then Teresa.
Hello, how are you? And thank you for your presentation. I actually have, my brain is going crazy right now with so many questions. Firstly, I would like to know, is this presentation available online or has it been sent over to the board prior to this meeting?
So I'll actually be able to send over additional links. So pretty much all of the literature we have at OCM, going over some of that guidance documents, exactly what you'll be receiving, the notification about a retail dispenser on site coming. We'll provide that. I think all tomorrow, I'll actually be able to send it over. So yeah, everything you see tonight and more, you'll be getting that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yaakov, we can hear you now. We're going through Kyrie's question and then you'll be up next, okay?
Yeah, I'll be fast, Yaakov. Thank you. Okay, so to answer my initial question, you all did not send this presentation, a 30-page presentation that you just presented to us, and we only have moments to respond to you. But thank you so much for being able to submit this information to the board. And hopefully we'll have a chance to thoroughly investigate and review it, and for our general board meeting before any voting. I actually have other follow-up questions. So I know I'm very familiar that the marijuana industry is a very, very profitable business and marketing industry. And if I'm not mistaken from your PowerPoint, you said that 40% of the funding that is made in our communities will be given back to the community. And if that's correct, we also were told that there's a board of advisors of 20 board advisors. And this leads me to ask my question, which is, who are these 20 members? How are they selected? Are they members and residents from within our CB9 communities or Brooklyn communities. And out of this 40% of money that's supposed to be allocated back to the community, let's just look at $1 billion, for example, or 10 billion, because sure, these stores could generate this much revenue. So that would be about anywhere from $1 billion to $4 billion that could really impact our community and all of Brooklyn. Who is going to decide where that money is going, and how are we going to actually see that this funding is affecting positive change in our communities? So those are two of the very small questions, and I'll stop there, but definitely need to know how these 20 advisors are selected and where they're from.
Okay, thank you for your question. So the Cannabis Advisory Board, they are members from across the state. So they would not be specifically someone from, your community board. It's for, it's looking at how these funds will be reinvested across the state in communities that were disproportionately impacted by prohibition. And so there are people from New York City on that board. When Adam sends the information tomorrow, he will include a link to our board page. We have two boards, the Cannabis Control Board, and actually the chair of that is a Brooklynite. And then again, we have the Cannabis Advisory Board. So Adam will include a link and you'll be able to see who are all the members of the board from across the state. As it relates to how the monies will be allocated, the board is in the process of, kind of creating that pathway for it. Currently, we have four dispensaries across the state. We have 3 in New York City and 1 in Binghamton. We anticipate opening more stores this month, actually. And so the monies for the fund are slowly trickling in because, again, we don't have a lot of stores open. And so the Cannabis Control Board is in the process of creating their policies and procedures. At the last board meeting, which was, Adam, do you remember when that was?
Give me 1 second, I'll get that for you.
Thank you. So at the last board meeting, they elected a board chair and vice chair. And so really the board is just starting to be in formation. And as community board members, when you have new members come into your community board, they have to get their sea legs and then try to figure out, what committees they want to be in. So with us, it's even more nascent than that. They have to create the committees and then people get on it. So we're in the very early stages of that process. So I won't be able to give you full information.
Last meeting was January 25th.
Thank you, Adam.
Do you mind?
January 25th.
Do you mind if I just offer a point of clarity? Because I think that there was actually a miscommunication in this kind of question and response. Kyrie, you said that 40% of the money was going back into the communities. My understanding is actually that 100% of money is going back into the communities that is collected via taxation, but it's a 40-40-20 split,
Correct.
Right? So 40% going to education, 40% going to public health, I believe, and then 20% going to like correctional and rehabilitation services.
Drug treatment, yes.
It's something along those lines. But to clarify, 100% of tax dollars that are collected from the cannabis sale in New York State will go back to New York State and be split across that 40-40-20 split.
Right. Oh, thank you.
Real quick for you guys here too as well, just in case.
Okay, so this makes it even worse. If only 100% of the taxes are going back to the community. So I would love to read this even further, but okay.
And Kyrie, we'll be able to read it further because when we get into the office, Adam will send it and your community board will have it and it will be distributed.
And if any questions do come up further, you can definitely submit it to us and I'll be happy to, definitely get some questions and answers out to you.
Thank you, I will. But I have this statement. So for both of those two questions, I didn't have any answers, and I understand that you're in the premature stages and other boards need to be assembled and everything needs to grow better for you all to have a better understanding on the boards and how you can monitor giving back to the community. But to me, I find that to be a problem if they're already 4 shops, 3 in the city and 1 in Binghamton, or even if it's 3 shops already up and running, and you all have intentions to open up more, and you all have you have intentions to open up more shops and stores. However, we don't even have a blueprint on how we're going to give back yet, or on the boards, or who's going to be on these advisory boards, the different boards. And it seems as though, because this is a countrywide initiative, even if Brooklyn, New York, or CB9 generates $500 million, that $500 million is now going to be divvied up and split and can be allocated based on your advisory to Binghamton, as long as this New York State or other places get this money. And again, I don't see how that directly impacts CB9 when, you know, so many members of CB9 and of New York City and New York State and our whole country were jailed just not long ago when I was in college for the possession of a little bit of marijuana. So I take this very seriously. And yeah, we would love these answers to these questions. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, we take it seriously as well. So there are a couple of things. The tax revenues, there's a portion that comes back to the county. So 4% comes back to the city, and then that gets divvied up between the city and the counties. And so in New York City, each of the boroughs is its own county. And so as you guys know, you're Brooklyn, but you're Kings County. And so New York City will get 4%. And of that 4%, a portion of that will come back to the county. So that's from point of sale. So if all this money is being made, you know, for dispensaries in Brooklyn, then it will come back to Brooklyn. So that's the first thing. The second, it is the Cannabis Control Board that will determine how, you know, how the grant monies are distributed on the projects that they're distributed on. And so our board just, again, recently in our January 25th meeting, voted for a board chair and a board vice chair and are in the process of setting up the committees. That doesn't mean that we don't know. It means that we are in the process of formation, like we are forming this. And just to also just kind of level set, we are standing up an agency and a new industry and boards. And so there are some people that want us to go faster. There are some people that want us to go slower. You know, but we are going, I think, in a good pace. And we have some of the best people in the state working on this. And more importantly, all of us who work for the Office of Cannabis Management, we live in the state. We live in these same communities. I live in Harlem. So I understand what you're saying. And we have the best interests of the state, and we're working very hard to get it right.
And Kyrie, I would
so
say,
much.
yeah, thanks for all of your great questions, Kyrie. If you're interested in looking at the boards, I'm actually looking at them right now. You can just go to cannabis.ny.gov and you can see headshots and bios for each of the board members.
No, of course. Thank you. I was looking at it as I was speaking and they told us, but again, the presentation before this meeting would have been even better. Thank you.
So typically we don't give it out ahead of time, and that's just because, you know, that's just how we operate as an office. We do the presentation, then we send it out to people because we really want to make sure that, you know, we have the full attention and are able to get Q&A. And the other thing too is typically we drop links in the chat, but the chat wasn't.
But we don't have a chat.
Yeah,
no, we don't have a chat. And Kyrie, I think you raise a good point, right? And I think this office has been very responsive in coming to talk with us. And I think, you know, if we generate a list of questions.
I understand this. I don't think this is all of my questions again. Remember, we're representatives of the community board. As you know, you do an amazing job every day as the chair. These questions are for everyone else. If I'm thinking about it, for all of the other members in our community that don't even have this opportunity. So thank you, and I can move on. Thank you.
Yeah, understood. What I was about to offer was that we could potentially ask them to come back if we have further questions in the future.
You're so awesome. Yes, thank you.
and we'd actually like to come back, particularly after the regulations are done, because then we have, you know, there's more meat to the bone, so to speak. So we'd be happy to.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I hope that this is the beginning of a conversation. It's an important moment for New York State and for our community as well. And so appreciate you being here, and hopefully this is the beginning of a long relationship with CB9. I want to pass it to Teresa next,
I
who's
think
been
I was-
waiting patiently.
Primo.
Sorry, Yaakov. You're right, Yaakov. Please go ahead.
Fine. So I just quickly want to follow up on Rashida, and then I have a few comments and questions myself. I agree the staffing of enforcement is important. As somebody that was involved in compliance checks and environmental strategies for alcohol, I could tell you that NYPD is not really doing compliance checks today. And in many parts of the state, for compliance checks, there are private organizations that are getting federal funding to fund those compliance checks and overtime. So to say that you're working with other law enforcement agencies, I could tell you pretty much from experience, if you don't have your own staff and enough staff, it's not going to be done. So the fact that you're, coordinating in extreme cases, law enforcement will get involved. But on a daily basis or a monthly basis, you cannot rely on local law enforcement to do compliance checks for you. They don't do it for alcohol, they're not going to do it for you. So that's just a response to and a follow-up to Rashida's question. Unless something changes. But if we judge on the history with alcohol compliance checks, I can tell you they're not going to do it for you. I would want to make a quick suggestion that as I formerly chaired the public safety for a few years. I'm a member for 4 years. I think one of the great challenges when it comes to liquor licenses, that board members really don't know what they're supposed to assess and judge. A lot of times they spend a lot of time arguing over 200-foot rule and 500-foot rule or other things, which really the state liquor authority themselves are making these assessments. And board members really don't know what the SLA, in your case, your organization, your agency wants to hear from the board. So I want to suggest that before this gets serious, you create some kind of sort of document for boards where members could have clear criteria what you expect to hear from the community, because there's many things that you're going to be deciding yourself. So just give us clear direction of what you like to hear from us. That way we could be first of all, we save a lot of time for a lot of boards, but also that we could be a support, and we could be a part of the system, and not just wasting our time. That's suggestion one. And again, I'm saying it with friendship. Another point is there's two things I asked for clarity in your presentation. I noticed you mentioned something about training, server training. What wasn't clear to me when it comes to liquor licensing, server training is not required, even though there's many benefits. Currently, the way the law is written, server training is not required. It sounds like you're saying that you are going to require server training.
Require it, yes.
Okay, so that's a positive change. It's required, and in order to get a license, all the staff have to be trained, or just the owner?
Yeah, sorry, Pascal, you want to go ahead?
No, go on, Adam.
So part of the compliance for them and, regulations, guidance, what they have to follow to be able to keep the license is that their operation makes sure that everyone that is operating, either that's a bud tender, if they're curing plants, processing, is properly trained in safety, compliance, and that's all spelled out in our guidance and regulations.
So they have to be they have to go through a training and receive a license of some sort, correct?
So they get the license to open. Everybody has to be trained.
What does that mean when it comes to training? I know when it comes to liquor stores, there's organizations
liquor
and programs that you get licensed. You get a document that says you took 6 hours of training, you took 12 hours of training, you have a certificate that says you were trained. That's what required training means. You have to go through a specific curriculum.
Correct.
So that's what's required by.
Yes, that is required for all the dispensaries and their staff. Yes.
That's amazing news. Thank you so much. And one follow-up to that.
I'm happy you put a smile on your face.
I'm very happy. It's great. One follow-up is I noticed in the presentation also you said that servers have the right to refuse to serve, right? When it comes to liquor licenses, it is illegal to serve somebody who's intoxicated. You are not allowed to serve somebody under 21. You are not allowed to serve somebody who has a habitual drunk, and you're not allowed to serve somebody intoxicated. So I guess my question is, why are we relying on server judgment where potentially commissions are involved, or they're obviously the business owners want to sell as much as they can. why is there no law in place? Just like by alcohol, at a certain point, it is illegal to serve, as I feel should be. Why are we making it different? Why is it different here where server has the right to refuse and there's no legal requirement that would prevent him from serving in the case of whatever the criteria is, I guess? Why is it different than alcohol where we leave it up to the server's judgment and we don't make it legally required?
I will have to get back to you on that question, specifically why it's not legally required. But it is part of the training where they, where the bud tenders get that portion of the training and they know signs to look out for. I don't have a specific, I understand what you're asking.
No, but I want to follow up. I'll tell you the big difference. When it comes to alcohol, because it's legally required, there are consequences. If the person goes out and he walks in drunk and you serve him alcohol and he gets into a, God forbid, a car crash, or he commits an act of violence, the store owner and the server are legally responsible. Both, there could be civil liability and criminal liability. If you leave it up to his discretion, then again, I'm not an expert in law, but it would seem there is no legal recourse if something goes wrong afterwards. So it almost seems like I don't see the purpose of giving him that. I mean, everybody has the right to refuse. I don't understand what that even, upon further thought, I'm not sure what it means he has a right to refuse. Any store owner always has a right to refuse. But when you make it required, there are legal consequences if something goes wrong. And there are also benefits. Yeah.
So again, I will take that question back to our legal team and we will, we'll try to get some clarification. So instead of Adam sending this out to you all first thing in the morning, we're gonna get that question to our legal team. And then once we have that answer, and they respond fairly quickly,
right,
we'll send out the slide deck along with the links, along with the answer for you for that. As it relates to, I think this was part 2 of your multi-part question, creating some document for the community board to have. We actually do have that, but because there's no ability to put it in the chat, you'll get that in the links that we send.
That's great. Thank you so much.
That's great.
And the one last point too, I think he was mentioning is compliance and enforcement. Those are our 2 largest growing agency, well, not agencies, but let's say divisions currently at OCM, for exactly the reason you said, to make sure we have enough people, staff to be going into these places to do compliance and have that enforcement action as well. So we're building, those are our 2 biggest ones that are building as of today. So yeah, definitely appreciate the comments.
That's great. And I think you should include that if you could find out what those numbers are, it would be great.
Those numbers changing weekly.
Well, give us
a lot of updating.
When NYPD comes on the board, they give us the latest crime statistics. You could give us the latest numbers of the end of the month. You don't have to give us daily numbers.
Whatever you have for your email tomorrow will be a helpful starting point. I know this email grows by the moment, but it's appreciated, all this information. Yaakov, good?
Thank you.
All set? Okay, great. I'm going to move it along to Victor up next, and then we have Jerry, and then we have Ennis to close us out.
I think Teresa got to ask
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I keep jumping around. I keep following the hands. Teresa, don't worry. I got you. You're up next.
Hi. Some of my questions were already asked. Thank you, other board members. One thing that I want to know about is like job opportunities, like the bud tenders, various licenses. Will there be any moves to hire from the local community for any places that open within our community board? And what would those jobs look like? And what are their like pay scales? It would just be fortuitous for us to have some job opportunities in our area.
So I'm sorry. So I will say that this is a focal point for both Mayor Adams and Borough President Reynoso to have this, because as you may recall in one of the slides that Adam provided, it was steeped in public health, but one of the, I call it a three-legged stool. So the seat is public health, but one of the legs was economic development. And so definitely there are opportunities, a lot of employment opportunities, not just in the licensed industry, but also in the ancillary industries that, you know, in the slide that Adam talked about. The Department of Labor, the New York State Department of Labor, actually that falls under their umbrella, and they are in the process of creating just a lot of programs and job training and development. At the federal level, this is still an illicit drug. It is legal in the state for anyone 21 and over, but it is still an illicit drug at the federal level. And so all of these programs are just developed from state dollars. And so we actually are working with the Department of Labor and going around and doing a series and I feel like it's
Workforce
tomorrow.
development will be the series topic.
Yeah, we're doing a series that it's budding opportunities. And so it's really targeting public housing residents and giving them information of how they can be bud tenders. And so we're starting that. Again, we are a state agency. And I know you're specifically focused on Community Board 9, but we are a state agency, so we focus on the entire state. So we're starting in Schenectady, and we will be you know, going around the state with the Department of Labor. The other thing that I can say is New York City has its own cannabis office. It is Cannabis NYC. And Cannabis NYC is also looking to, you know, and this is specifically focused on New York City because it is a city agency looking for opportunities to have economic development, job creation happening across the 5 boroughs. And so that's also a space. And Cannabis NYC is actually incubated in, it is part of New York City Small Business Services. So it's part of SBS. And so they're going to be looking to curate ownership opportunities for people and programs to help that happen, as well as employment opportunities. And additionally, there's a project labor agreement for these positions. So these will be unionized positions. People will be able to make a living, more than a living wage, and they'll be able to, you know, support their family and have health care. And so, you know, it really is a wonderful opportunity. Not everybody will be an owner of you know, get a license and be an owner, but they can still be in this industry. Again, if you are working for one of the 9 license types or in an ancillary business.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Looking forward
Great.
to that.
Thank you, Teresa. And I would offer that Pascal just gave a great overview of all the work that's happening at the state level. And then I'd say as it's relative to Community Board 9, what we can also do is make a part of our process and questioning and having conversations with applicants for licenses, you know, similar to what we do with the SLA applicants, encouraging them to hire locally.
I'm sorry. And there are colleges, Medgar Evers I know has a whole track, cannabis track for people who want to go in the industry, but also last year the governor provided monies for SUNY and CUNY to develop, you know, these kind of like job training and educational pathways.
That's really fascinating. No, thank you, Pascal. Really interesting information. Okay, great. I'll pass it along next to Victor. Hopefully I haven't skipped anybody and hurt anyone's feelings again. All right, Victor's up next. And Milford, I see a physical hand from you, so I'll add you right after Ennis, okay?
Good.
Okay. So, hi. My question deals with the pathway for folks that have been previously marginalized for marijuana. Folks that have been previously convicted and now have their records expunged. So I was just wondering what their what that application would look like. Is it any different than that of any other person that's applying to get a license. And I guess the second part is what support can these folks expect from the office in getting their license and growing their business?
So I will answer part of it, and then I'll let Adam answer part, because he actually went through the slides for this. So Adam, why don't you start? Because I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I want to start with kind of like our mentoring program that we have right now. So that's the first thing, is what we're doing is we're taking people, maybe not past convictions, but people who've been operating already in the cannabis industry, whether that's through cultivation, processing, and sale. We wanted to give these operators the chance to have, training when it comes to being compliant with regulations, how to be compliant with laws, how to open a business, how to file your taxes. All these things are trying to take these previous people who know the plant, know the cultivation, know how to use the plant, how to work it, how to sell it, all these skills. Now we're just trying to hone them to be able to shift over from that recreational market, gray area, we can call it, over into this licensed entity, how to pay your taxes, how to do employee paperwork. And, like I said, this mentorship is really highlighting on that. Additionally, for someone who was in a community disproportionately impacted by cannabis, they would be part of that 50% of licenses being awarded. So it's the same application they would be filling out, but a case of the MRTA licenses, again, 50% is the goal that's set out, and that's written into the law. So on top of that, we do have our card program, which was a requirement that you had that prior conviction if you were an individual applying. The only alternative to that was nonprofits had the opportunity to apply, but they had to be focused on serving those, past conviction people. Hopefully that got that answer, a roundabout there. We're just trying to provide a lot of programs to basically move people who are, maybe in the gray market over into this licensed market.
And, it's part of we have an amazing equity team as well. And they continue to curate programming specifically for social equity applicants. And so people with previous marijuana arrests and convictions are part of that. And this is one of the reasons why people should sign up for our website. Because as Adam said, the CARD, Conditional Adult Retail Dispensary, it was specifically targeted towards people with previous marijuana arrests or convictions, but also, when someone gets locked up, it's not just them, right? It's the whole family unit. And so qualifying relatives, i.e. parent or guardian, child or dependent, spouse or former spouse, can, with the proper documentation, would be able to apply for the card license as well. So, we're trying to be very thoughtful and creative in creating these pathways to bring folks into the regulated market.
Thank you. And, I should say the reason I ask is I'm a public defender here in Brooklyn. So, that's what really prompts my question. So thank you for sharing the responses.
No.
Thank you. Ennis, you're bringing us home on questions.
I thought I was bringing you
Yeah,
home.
sorry. You can go first.
Yeah, Milford, you're after Ennis, I think technically, but if Ennis has granted you permission to go first if your question is so burning. Do you want to go
We're
ahead,
going to vote
Milford?
after these two questions, right?
Oh, now you want to move us along, huh, Yaakov?
I don't want you to move you along. You can go as long as you want. I have to leave at 8:30 or 8:35.
Okay, 8:35. Understood. We'll try to move as quickly as possible. Milford,
you're gonna lose quorum if I leave? I don't know.
What I want to know is probably already in the public domain and probably known by you, but I must have missed when marijuana became a good thing to consume. I must have missed when marijuana became less onerous in society. And so I'm just curious, what do you say to a 70-year-old retired teacher or a retired cop or a neighbor who's a relative who's who was on the front line and drug enforcement and all of that, why government is behind the distribution of this drug now? I mean, not that. No, that easily that can be something that somebody can email me or send me rather than take up space at this point in time. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is I mean,
You're like, how did this happen?
yeah.
I get it.
How did this happen? And there's already an injunction in Brooklyn that correct me if I'm wrong, it prevents the development of the stores, right?
That's correct. But it's as Pascal said earlier, it's being moved through the courts and the state AG is on it and handling it. So it probably will be cleared eventually. How long it will take, we don't know, but it's already approved in Manhattan County.
Yeah, it's so Brooklyn is, of the 5 boroughs, Brooklyn is the only borough that is impacted by the injunction. But we also have Westchester, we have Syracuse, we have Rochester. So there are other parts of the state that are impacted by the injunction. And you know, I'll just lightly touch on your first part of the question.
Yeah, and I mean, was there some lawsuit or was there some medical finding? Or?
No, so it was a lawsuit, which is why there's an injunction. But as it relates to why is marijuana, cannabis, weed, blunt, whatever you want to call it, why now it's okay. So here's the thing, right? It is the hemp plant. And hemp and cannabis, marijuana, weed, blunt, whatever you want to call it, it's actually a medicinal plant. And it's been demonized for a whole host of reasons, which, you know, I won't get into here. Right. But, you know, there are pictures of the plant literally growing. And you know what, Adam, can you also add that link to the video?
Already ahead of it.
Thank you. So there's this wonderful video that our executive director and our chief equity officer did, and it really gives a history of the plant. And they used to grow the plant in Brooklyn. The plant. So I'm 5. So I think I'm 5'9", but I'm really not. But I just say it. But I'm about 5'8". The plant was like taller than me. Grown in Brooklyn, just like free before there was prohibition. You know, and so, and I think really people need to look at like, well, where did prohibition come from, and what communities were using it that they needed to, you know, implement prohibition. But that is all I will say.
All right.
Thank you.
Milford, I'm happy to have a conversation with you later on my take.
All right, Primo. Thank you.
We're overdue for a conversation, me and you. Okay. And then I want to pass it to Ennis, and then I do want to make sure that we have time to vote on the liquor license. We have Yaakov had to go, and so I want to make sure that we don't lose quorum before we have the opportunity for Itzel, who has been sitting here very patiently, waiting for us to go through this.
Can I vote in this committee? Can I vote in this committee?
You unfortunately cannot vote in this committee, Milford, but if you reach out to the board office, we can talk about adding you to the committee, since you do come frequently and we do enjoy having you here. I'm going to pass it along to Ennis.
Yes.
Just email Mia.
Yeah, so I'm going to wait to bring up the landlord issues because I know we're talking about another topic right now. But, you know, I do want to say that as a medical marijuana patient, it is nice to be able to, you know, be able to walk, even if I'm still not very good at it.
Thank you for sharing your own personal experience with it. It's really, really helpful. And Milford, you know, that may be a good conversation for you as well. There are medicinal benefits to marijuana that are well documented. Proven is probably the word. Felice, is it quick and is it related to this?
It sure is. My
Okay,
question is
then
why,
we're gonna do
why
it
these-
and then we're gonna move out. Then we're gonna move along. Okay, go for it, Felice.
Okay. Question is why is it that these plants don't have seeds? How is it grown? They do not hold seeds.
So actually that's a genetics thing. So some cannabis plants, actually a regular cannabis plant just as it is does have seeds, but a lot of these scientific labs have been able to genetically modify these plants to not have and not reproduce seeds. And it also goes down to the things of the plants, and there's males and female plants where you may actually the genders don't produce seeds. But instead of wasting a lot of time going into it, I'll include some more information maybe on the basics of cannabis, what is the plant, why aren't there seeds, I'll definitely include some of that.
Thank you, Adam. We've given you your homework and we appreciate you taking it on.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. I just want to say thank you to Pascal and to Adam for coming here, for sharing information. I know that it's a really complex undertaking. It's a massive undertaking, frankly. And so we applaud you for your efforts. We applaud you for listening to the community, for listening to us, and we hope that we can partner with you in the future, because we're all going to have some stumbles as we move through this first iteration of what it looks like to bring licenses to the county of Kings County in Brooklyn, and also to our own community. We want to make sure that we want to get it right. And so it's going to take everybody on this public safety committee. It's going to take partnership with your office. And so we hope that we can build and maintain a relationship moving into the future. We look forward to your follow-up tomorrow, which we'll be sure to share with, of course, all the members of this committee. And we'll probably share it with the larger community board as well, because I think it was some really rich information. And we'll follow up with you about other opportunities to, get this out in front of more community members, if that's possible. We'll continue to talk about it. I'm sure we'll have another series of questions once we properly digest all of this information, to Kyrie's point. So please feel free to take your leave. You've been with us for a while, and we're going to get back to business as usual and dig into our SLA application with Itzel, who is now here with us.
Thanks for having us. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Have a good night, y'all. Okay, great. So Itzel and Patrick.
Yeah,
Itzel,
we
go
were
ahead.
able to get her, and she's on the line here, as you can see.
Yes, thank you for waiting patiently. So we were telling Patrick earlier that it for us is just really helpful to hear from the business owner themselves. And typically once we go to the general meeting, they'll ask us, well, did the business owner come? And if we say no, then we're going to have a problem. So for you to come makes everything much easier. And we'd love to hear just a little bit about you, kind of like your, how you decided to, launch this restaurant and what your experience has been.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. And if you guys don't know, my restaurant is located in 227 Rogers between Union and President. And we have about 80 employees. Some of them are from the community. And the reason I decided to open this restaurant is because every time I need to eat a steak, I need to go to the city. So I said, let me open a steakhouse in Brooklyn that could benefit the community. And the community has taken this restaurant very, how would I say it? They are embraced this restaurant, and I'm so happy and glad for it, because usually during the first year, restaurants struggle, and I didn't feel that impact. Like, I'm able to keep it going, and that's because the community has been supportive of the restaurant.
Fantastic. Okay, great. And am I pronouncing your name correctly, or is it Itzel?
Itzel.
Itzel. Okay, now I know. My apologies for mispronouncing earlier. What I will also say is that you answered one of our questions, which was about the number of employees that you have on any given night, which is 8. And then Kyrie raised one other question, which was just that, and Kyrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was missing from the application just the number of tables and seats that you have available in the restaurant. It does say that the maximum occupancy is 74, I believe, but if you could just tell us a little bit about kind of what the layout of the restaurant looks like, that would be helpful.
So we have approximately around 80 tables, not 80 tables, 40 tables, and it's 80 seats. So the restaurant is divided into 2 sections. I have an enclosed backyard that holds 50 people, and I have the front part of the restaurant with the bar, which holds 30 people.
Great. And so you serve food outside, it's enclosed. Do you run it during the winter as well? Or is it just in the summer? Run it during the winter too. Okay, great. Kyrie, I feel like maybe I missed one other question. Did you have one?
Well, so for the tables, it was answered. The amount of employees were answered. And 2, hi, and thank you again. Like Primo said, we're so happy that you were able to join us this evening. I guess my only follow-up question was, but it was already answered, that you do have a license to operate outside and to sell and serve alcohol outside as well as indoors?
Yes. It's not outside. It's it was when we did the setup, it was as part of the plan.
Oh, so the seats aren't outside?
No, they're
It-
not actually outside, but it looks like it's outside because the roof is glass.
Oh, okay.
It's
So
an
all
it's an
seating is
enclosed
indoors.
it's an enclosed backyard, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, Itzel, but like yeah, technically it's in the outside space behind, but they have four
An
walls
atrium.
on that outside space.
I think they call it architecturally an atrium.
Mm-hmm.
When you have glass enclosures, it makes a room that's called an atrium.
Yeah.
Outside, inside, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay, Kyrie, does that answer your three great
Oh, yeah.
questions?
Yeah, so if they have the license, yeah. And the only reason that question was presented, which you made it very clear, is that a couple of different applications were sent in first, and some applications you didn't answer or answered one way, and then later ones we had other answers. So that was where the source of that question came from. But thank you so
That's a
much,
good-
and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
That's a really good point. And so Patrick, maybe one thing that you could just commit to doing is giving us one final version of the application that includes kind of those three main questions that we just asked about today. So the number of tables and chairs, just confirming that you are utilizing kind of an outdoor indoor space, if you will. Just write a sentence about an atrium. And then the last piece was the number of employees that are typically. That would be helpful. And it's not a thing that we need in order to vote tonight. It's just a thing that we would need before we have the general meeting. So
No
we just have a
problem.
clean,
I'll get it
completed
to you.
application.
I'll get it to the office in the morning.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
thank you, Primo. Actually, that was a perfect suggestion. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, great questions. And we should have one singular application that has all the information if we're going to vote on it. But granted that we have all this information, I want to pause and see if anybody has any questions for Itzel. And if they do, we're happy to take them. And then we'll move to voting next. All right, seeing no questions. I'd love to call a vote. Mia, what's the language? I'd like to suggest a motion to vote on this.
We would like to call for a motion to recommend that the committee move the application to the executive.
Rashida's
the
about to
general
do it.
board.
Rashida's ready.
Yeah,
She's
Rashida
dying listening to me struggle through this.
Copy paste.
Rashida,
Go ahead,
Rashida, copy paste. Do it the right way.
Sorry, I was just laughing. I'm sorry, people. I was like, let me raise my hand so I can just make the motion. I make a motion to approve the application from Patrick Steakhouse for renewal of their liquor license. And is there
I
any-
second that motion.
So
Awesome. So now the motion is on the floor for voting. Yes. So is any, let's just see if anybody is opposed. Otherwise we'll see, or we can go around for voting members. So Rashida, what is your vote?
yes.
Great. Kyrie, what is your vote?
Yes.
Ronald, what is your vote?
Yes.
Fantastic. My vote is yes. Victor, what is your vote?
Yes.
Great. Felice, I believe, is our last member. What is your vote, Felice?
Of course, I'm with you. Yes.
Okay, right on. Did I miss any members of the committee? No, I don't believe so. Fantastic. Okay, voting is concluded. I'm going to move us to adjournment. It has been a long meeting. There is follow-up that we are expecting. Mia does not want us to adjourn, so everybody stay. Oh, I'm sorry, Ennis. Yes, we totally missed you. And thank you, Mia, for stopping me. I have missed too many things today. Ennis, please share your community concerns with us.
Yeah, so I wanted to come before the committee because we have spoken previously. There are some safety concerns with our landlord's son. He is running a nightclub essentially out of the building's community space, frequently having parties that go till even 4 or 5 a.m. often multiple times a month on the weekends and as well as during the week. He claims to have, soundproofed. There has been no testing that we have been shown. People on the 8th floor can still hear the music. I'm on the 3rd floor and I can still hear the lyrics of the music as well as feeling my furniture shake. But in addition to that, what's also a safety issue is that lately these parties have started to spill out onto the sidewalk outside the building. At the previous party, he hired a food truck, so that was there all night, and it was parked outside the building, and there was, partying that spilled out onto the sidewalk. Obviously, if this was a tenant, the landlord would be required to take care of it. And so seeing as how this is the landlord's son who is renting the building from his parents, and that, said parents don't really seem inclined to take action, we have formed a tenants association. We are looking into pro bono legal representation. And I also wanted to reach out to the community board.
Thank you for presenting this to us. It sounds like a challenging situation. I see some hands
there's
raised.
also been retaliatory evictions of a few people. So that's been worrying.
Thank you for sharing that as well. Rashida looks ready to lay down the law. So you have a lawyer right here who is going to say some things to you. And I have some thoughts as well, but Rashida's got the hand raised. So Rashida, kick us off.
Great.
I'm not talking in my lawyer capacity, but I do remember this is Gaia.
Gaia Nomaya, yes.
Maya that came before this committee several times last year, that last session, and even before the community board at the bigger session. And we ended with not, they wanted to get a dance, I believe it was a dance, amend their application for dancing and something else, and it wasn't passed. So it's very interesting because I always think what happened after that. So it's good that we have this on record, that they're still operating like this, because if they do come up for their renewal, which they will at some point again, we have this on record that they're still not, that this is a continuing issue that hasn't been addressed.
Yeah, they are definitely dancing. I have heard the music, I have heard the beats, I have heard the DJ, I have heard the guys going like, woo, etc. So, I wasn't sure if the lack of permit was being enforced or anything, but I am really glad that I was able to bring this up.
And just so you know, we have actually received multiple complaints about this place from members of the community and from neighbors in adjoining buildings, and a formal complaint has been filed with the State Liquor Authority.
Oh my God, did from somebody in the 510 Flatbush Avenue building, or?
I believe it. I don't know if I can share that information about who technically filed the complaint, but know that it also is going through the community board.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a look into what more information we might be able to share. I just want to be cautious because there's something in process at the moment. And so what I would love for you to do is email just the community board office. You probably have our email address already. It's online, and just say that you met with Public Safety Committee regarding Gaia Nomaya, and you'd love to have what information is available. And we can go through process with the community board office to see what information we can share with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This has been a real issue, especially since they're, low income working people with children, especially when there are these events on weekdays and they are, out on the sidewalk with crowds and smoke. It is a really big quality of life issue for many members of the community, and that's why we formed this tenants association.
Which is great. What I will say is they are they're offender number one as far as community board night. So this is really helpful for you to come here, but also just so we've received numerous complaints, and a process has begun.
Fantastic.
With regard to the things that we as a community board can control, there were going to be some other things that I would offer to you that may be helpful.
Yes,
I would
please.
say like another step that you're going to want to take is to reach out to your elected representatives if you haven't already. City council members are incredibly responsive, especially if you are saying that, like, if you are coming as a group of people, there are things that they can do. There's also your state assembly member, and those would be some of the first places that I would reach out to see what kind of actions can be taken. Your state assembly member is going to be helpful for state level things.
All right.
Your community, your city council member is going to be helpful for liaising with the police. We also liaise with the police as a function of the community board, the
there
NYPD
has,
and the FDNY. And so we regularly have the sergeant for community affairs come to these meetings as well, if that's somebody that you have or haven't spoke with.
great.
Their name is Sergeant Barada, and that might be either an introduction or a conversation that we can broker. So I know that they're not here today, but it doesn't mean that the relationship doesn't exist. So we are trying to help with this situation, and
Thank you
are
so
committed
much.
to continuing to help.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm definitely noticing that like a lot of people are being discouraged because they don't feel that police necessarily take contact when there's noise complaints, especially because there hasn't been like
It's tricky. It's tricky with noise complaints because noise complaints are also like often over-reported, right? Like somebody doesn't like the fact that their neighbor is playing the piano at 2 PM, and so noise complaints can be hard to lock down. But seeing as we've received numerous ones about this in particular, we can carry on. And if you don't mind, can I get to some of the other folks who have their hand raised?
Of course. Thank you so much for your time.
Very quickly, Primo, I hate to cut you off. Is it possible? I know Mr. Agard and Ms. Rivas, we've already taken a vote. Is it possible for them?
Oh, absolutely, they can
Yeah.
go. Yeah, sorry if I wasn't clear about that. Have a good
Oh,
night.
no, I just had one question. I was waiting.
Oh, you had a question. Go
We'll be
ahead.
informed about the next general meeting?
Yes,
You'll be
I'll be
informed
sending
tomorrow.
All right, very good. Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. I think I saw Teresa next, but I'm only seeing what's in order. So Teresa Felice Suki, I believe, is the order.
Yeah, just a couple of things my neighbors asked me to bring up for the safety committee. Number one is the shooting that happened on Nostrand and Sterling Street. There was a recent shooting, and people have concerns and want to make sure that they get they want, like, I guess they've been using cooling methods over there in the past because there's been numerous shootings in that area. One on Christmas Eve, one on New Year's Eve, in that area. So please, if you could do whatever you can to cool down, get the police involved. I don't know, just please help them out over there before things heat up, and we want people safe, right, with their lives. And the
Understood.
other
Teresa,
yeah.
would you mind sending that to me, just so I have a reminder? And what we can do is also just reach out to Sergeant Barada at the NYPD and try to get some more information about that.
Yeah, and the I guess the council meeting, the precinct council meeting is next I think Thursday too, if people want to attend that and talk about this. Because I know last time they didn't talk about it, and people in the community wondered why. So people want it brought up. The other issue is the bikes, the electric bikes, and the delivery guys that are on the sidewalks. And it seems to be especially, like, I don't know for other areas, but over here, over near Empire, there's a McDonald's, there's a lot of restaurants over there with delivery people, and the sidewalk is narrowed on Empire, like Bedford, sort of in that area, because of the construction. So there's a very, very narrow sidewalk and the delivery guys are going down the sidewalk and you can't see, there's no like vision. And the sidewalk is so narrow that people are, there's a lot of near misses over there. It's by Ebbets Field, so there's a lot of people that walk there and a lot of the scooters like
No
coming
doubt,
on the
on
sidewalk.
every block. And we've
Well-
all had to jump out of the way for a
But there's
for a
yeah,
person
so
on a scooter.
what is happening with that is a safety concern. Like
Understood.
there's like seems to be no enforcement whatsoever, anytime, anywhere. Like what's gonna happen with that? I mean, it's another thing where before somebody dies or gets their arm broke or, let's do something, let's figure it out. How can we encourage some enforcement with that issue? Like,
Certainly a question that we can ask NYPD. But
and
I
what
think
about
that would be the,
licensing the delivery guys? So there's like, they hit somebody in the night.
there's been
no
a long conversation about whether electric bikes need to be licensed. And the answer that was
Well, I
arrived
think
at,
maybe the delivery in particular, that seems to be and the delivery guys have to have a short window of when they can deliver. I don't know, maybe it's more of a council
Teresa,
position, but
yeah, I think that's more of a legislative question that would probably land in city council or potentially state assembly. Yeah, that's
okay,
hard.
so-
That's one where a law needs to exist in order for local enforcement to take place.
So you're saying this is rampant in every neighborhood?
Yeah, I think, there have been a lot of concerns about the utilization of electric bikes, not only on sidewalks and for delivery people, but also they've been causing a lot of accidents, whether they're running into pedestrians or whether they're hitting cars because they're also moving quite quickly and they're not following traffic laws.
They burn up pretty fast too. The number of homes that's been destroyed by fire because of these parked bikes. I mean, we are talking about the same vehicle, right?
Well, there's a number of different vehicles, right? There's the electric bike,
Thank
then
you,
there's the
Milford.
moped, and there's a few different
And if
vehicles that we're talking about here.
If you ever pass that Shake Shack on a Friday night, I mean,
It's got a million of those bikes parked outside. I've seen it for sure. Yeah,
And I have an electric bike, by the way. I do have an electric bike, but
exactly. And
but
that's
I'm
where it
not
gets
I'm
a
not
little
breaking
tricky.
the law. So
Right, but it gets tricky, because if we're going to require certain parties to, this is where it has been tricky, is if we're going to require certain parties to get licensed for electric vehicles, then we need to require what number. Does it have to do with CCs on a vehicle? Does it have to do with the speed capacity? How does one monitor that kind of information? It's a gray area that hasn't been answered yet legislatively, but I'd certainly encourage you to continue to raise it.
well, I could use some help from the safety committee because it's a safety issue. That's why I'm here.
We are happy to bring it to NYPD in our next conversation with them and get a sense of where things lie. And then I think, a next level would probably be with the New York City, our city council members.
Is there a way to report it even? I mean, people.
I would say probably the only way to report it is going to be via 311 or 911 at this moment.
Yeah, it seems like a hapless situation.
I do not disagree.
What about the batteries?
I don't know.
About
I mean,
that?
I'm in terms of what? In terms of them exploding, or in terms of them being like
the fires. I guess it's like, the deregulation of the electric bikes came too fast, and because right before COVID and then the delivery,
Then there's been a few deaths as well. I mean, a lot of these delivery guys have died in these fires. I mean, not a lot, but at least 2 or 3.
I think that's right. I think part of what I'm trying to say is that part of our job is to be advisory to the community in terms of pointing you in the right direction of where to go to get things done. And I think that the correct place to go to get things done about this would be city council. And so I think that like the right next step, if we are a concerned community, Teresa, if you want to draft an email on behalf of the public safety committee, what we can do is we can review it and then we can send it together to our city council member. But I want to actually be able to get something done for you. And like the way to get something done would be to go to city council.
Do you think it would be fortuitous to go to Crystal's? She's having Crystal Hudson's having a state, like a
Coffee.
state of the.
Oh, state of the, yeah. I don't think the state of the would be the right place. I think she does a weekly or monthly kind of coffee with the council member, which may be a smaller format venue where you might have a greater opportunity to actually ask questions and interact with her. Whereas I think with a large audience, you might be less likely, because it's kind of a State of the Union thing, right? Less than a town hall situation, where I think the coffees are a good kind of interactive space to engage on a question like yours. I think that's a great idea, Teresa.
Well, it's, my neighbors asked me to bring both these topics up, so here I am.
Yeah. I'm glad that you did. And again, I think a good next step would be exactly what you suggested around engaging with Crystal. I'm sure she'd be open to it. Thank you, Teresa.
Battery enforcement.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Battery enforcement and then the bike enforcement. Felice, sorry, I know you wanted to get in there. Go ahead, Felice.
I just have one quick statement to make. I sit on the 71st Precinct Council, and we are supposed to have a meeting this Thursday. And once I get the flyer, I can send it to the community board. And these questions that you're asking can be asked there as well, because the concerns with the motorbikes, okay, anything that's motorized is a concern, okay? And yes, the question did come up, and I did bring it up in a few meetings about having insurance on these people that are driving motor items or bikes. They should be responsible for hitting people or one's car, okay? We shouldn't be held responsible and let them go scot-free. So yeah, that should be a topic of discussion. But yeah, bring your concerns to the 71st Precinct. We should be having a meeting this coming Thursday, or next week Thursday, and I'll see that a flyer is given to the community board. Thank you.
Thank you, Felice. I'm gonna try and come.
Okay, thank you.
Ennis, that might be a good meeting for you or a member of your committee to go to as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the date?
It's next Thursday.
Mhm.
Just next Thursday, and it's a meeting of the 71st Precinct, which Felice is a part of the advisory committee for.
Community
Felice,
council.
sorry, committee
Yeah,
council.
no,
Thank you.
it's
Great,
okay.
thank you.
It's kind of late, but I'm gonna see that a flyer is given to the community board because they normally put it up. The
It's
community
at
board
the
normally
school
puts it
on
up.
Empire Boulevard across the street from the
That is
police
correct.
station.
That is
I don't know
correct.
if you know where that is, Eunice, but it's
Yeah.
usually there, like, I think this third Thursday of every month.
If you email us tomorrow, we'll get you that flyer, okay? So you know where it is. Suki, you've patiently had your hand raised. Go for it.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that this issue of nightclubs and social dancing did actually come up as a zoning issue. The City of Yes zoning text amendments. One part of it deals with commercial establishments. And so one of the proposals is to change zoning law to make social dancing allowed as of right without any kind of special permits, like what Guy and Amaya had to come to us for in any bar. So one of the discussions that we had actually was regarding what we had been hearing at the community board over the last year or so with this building, whether it was a good idea to have some of these restrictions in the zoning code or whether we should leave that type of enforcement entirely to NYPD, to DEP, I think deals with noise concerns as well. The idea being that, if we have zones for certain activities in certain places and just not permitted at all in other places, that maybe it would prevent some conflicts. if you think they might be foreseeable. But so that's kind of a discussion that's ongoing at the zoning level as well. And yeah, with regards to the e-bikes on the sidewalk, that is a frequent complaint from my neighbors as well. And I think that Councilwoman Joseph did an interview on NPR maybe about 6 months ago, where she said that she had been getting that complaint from many of her constituents. So I do think that it's something that's recognized, and you should follow up with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Suki. That's incredibly helpful.
What Suki's talking about with the zoning, really, we need to look at that as a board. And I've been attending her subcommittee meetings, and this type of situation was brought up where these mixed use places are going to, the zoning is going to change, so possibly. So there could be a lot more of this happening to people, and it's a concern, like this Enos is talking, where it's noisy and it affects your quality of life every day. So we, I think, need to really look at this and see what's trying to be pushed through, because Mayor Adams wants to have a lot of, nightclubs. So
there's a fire truck going off in your background.
I think she knows that.
Oh, I tried to put my curtains up. There's a whole bunch of emergency vehicles outside of my house. I'm not sure what's going on. It's like fire trucks, police cars, something's going on.
Yeah,
I
I think that when it
Nothing's
I
on
was gonna s-
fire.
That's
that I
good.
can
That's
tell.
good. Stay safe. I was gonna say that when it comes to Guido Maya, it's almost like there are three separate issues, right? There's a noise complaint with NYPD. There's the question of whether they should have a liquor license, which falls under this the jurisdiction of this group, and then there's also kind of housing and development question that falls under Suki's. The three are certainly interrelated. In terms of what we can do the most about, it'd probably be the first two pieces inside of this committee, which are going to be having conversations with NYPD, but I think actually our most effective avenue is going to be through liquor licensing. And so we're committed to partnering with you on that. And please do stay in communication. Yeah. With that,
So I really appreciate that I'll be able to tell the committee, to tell the attendance committee this. I think there are a lot of people who have been like, well, we haven't seen action. So I think we should give up hope.
there is action. I don't know how long it's going to take to get resolved, to be honest, right? We don't know how long exactly this process takes, but we will be sure to share with you as soon as there are any updates. So, we can always promise communication.
All right.
Yeah, show up at that meeting. There's usually a lot of people there, like somebody from Rita Joseph's office is generally there, somebody from Crystal's offices. You'll have a good audience.
Mhm. I'm sorry,
Likely.
could you repeat that? I just want to write that down.
Well, if you go to the meeting that Felice told you about, you'll have an audience there for there'll be people there representing different, like probably somebody from Yvette Clark's office, probably somebody from Crystal's office, probably somebody from Rita Joseph. Those are your congressperson and your city council members. So Teresa is exactly right.
All right, thank you so much.
Teresa is exactly right.
I have to go take a call, but I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate being heard, and I really appreciate that I was able to attend this committee.
Of course. You have our information. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank
And
you.
we'll be in communication in the
Thank
future.
you.
For everybody else, it's Milford, is it quick?
No. I was saying goodbye to
Oh,
the
you're saying
lady.
goodbye. Okay. I was like, Milford, you're about to, yeah, goodbye, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you for all the learning.
Good night, everyone.
Together.
Have a good night. Bye.
Goodbye, y'all.